Let's talk about these civilian deaths. Last night, our network aired scenes of the largest hospital in Gaza having to turn away dead bodies at the hospital morgue. There was no more room. You've seen the widely chronicled story of the boys on the beach in Gaza who were killed. How does it strike you as a father, as a human being?
All right. To me, that was one of the most pathetic questions I've seen from Brian Williams. Not surprising, just pathetic. Joining us now is advocate Yifa Segal, and she is the joint director for the Tazpit, I know I probably said that one wrong, News Agency in Israel. Great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks you for having me.
The correct pronunciation of your news agency?
Tazpit.
Tazpit.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I knew that was wrong. Well, first of all, you know, when you see this, and this is nothing compared to what went on to happen with the death toll count and all that. I wonder when we're going to hear from an ISIS representative with a suit and a tie coming on CNN and saying Americans have killed 23 civilians today when they struck our convoy, and if the networks will allow that and take it seriously, because that's the same thing as Hamas, right?
It's exactly the same thing as Hamas. I mean, this is the same ideology that motivates them. It's the same radical Islam beliefs, the same MO, the same everything, of course.
So with this media coverage, not only in the U.S. but around the world, I know you're a very unique agency, news agency in Israel. But before we get to that, doesn't it drive you crazy? It drives me crazy. You're living there.
Yeah, it does drive us crazy because especially when you know what's going on and you're like we do. We are in the field all the time. We're covering everything that's going on. We know know the events. We know what's really going on the ground. So it's very unfortunate for us to see the way it's covered in the world. But this brings us exactly to the reason for why we started the news agency. Israel didn't have any news agency before. There was an attempt to do something 15 years ago. It wasn't very successful, and there was a void, a vacuum ever since. And when you have nine Palestinian news agencies covering events from Israel and the surrounding Palestinian areas, then you cannot be surprised. This is the information that most of the world is receiving. So what we do is we've established this news agency, the first and only of its kind right now, and we're on the ground. We have almost 200 people spread all over the ground, and we work with media outlets. We supply them with other angles, other stories, trying to provide the full picture.
Right. Because most of the quotes you hear come from the IDF sources. Yeah. You know, there's a French news agency, there's this news agency, and as you mentioned, all kinds of Palestinian news agencies. So how long has this been around?
Tazpit has been around for 3 years, more or less. The international department we've established about 2 years ago. And ever since, we work with many media outlets in various languages. We publish in about 12 different languages, our materials all over the world.
And when you're on the ground during the war with Hamas, for instance, what is the reaction from the world outlets that you feed information to? I mean, do they accept it? Do they look at you like you're crazy, and are they more apt to accept what Hamas says and what the Palestinians say than what you tell them?
I have to tell you, we come to a point where everyone that we work with is really grateful even for the material, because it's really unique and it's new and it's freshing and it's accurate and everything. But the problem is when you have a void and the world does not acknowledge, no one knows that it's a void. So now you have to make people understand that there's another source of information that you can use. Maybe you didn't get the whole picture. And I know a lot of these journalists, they really believe in their position in being to broadcast the truth to the world, and now they're starting to see new type of materials, new type of information, a new source of information. So slowly and surely, we're getting there with all the media outlets.
A Hamas official, a top Hamas official, just the other day said that there were limitations on journalists. They couldn't say what they saw. They weren't allowed to see. We all saw the Indian video that came after the cessation of hostilities, for the most part, where right outside the hotel room in a highly dense residential area, the rockets.
Exactly.
And then there's also this misconception. I heard Alan Dershowitz talk about this the other night, that Gaza is the most crowded area in the world, and he said, no, it's not. He said it's not as crowded as Manhattan, per square foot and all that stuff. It's not as crowded as many areas. There's plenty of isolated areas that Hamas could go launch their rockets from, but
Yeah.
they put it in the crowded civilian areas.
Of course. I mean, why not fire it at the beach? Why not fire it close to the border? Why fire it from within houses and mosques and hospitals? There's a reason for why.
But I never knew that the guy always accepted that the Gaza was this, sardine can filled with sardines, but it's not.
It's really not. And either way, I mean, you don't have to shoot from it within
I'm not saying that would
hospital
justify it. No, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
that everybody thinks
Yeah.
that Hillary even said, not defending it, but saying the problem is it's so crowded. Where are they going to fight? But that's just not the truth.
There's a wide beach.
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
many places,
Yeah.
fields, and I'll tell you the problem. Israel is maybe most people don't know this, but Israel is actually a democratic country. Probably human rights in Israel is better than in most places in the world, including Western countries, where you have all the freedoms. And this is kind of a paradox, because if you're a journalist in Gaza or any Arab or Muslim state where there is no freedom of press,
Yeah.
and so you're coerced to cooperate with whatever the
If you want to stay there.
if you want to stay there, if you want to stay
alive,
alive.
yeah.
So this is the paradox. So the journalists sometimes are not even aware of this, but the Hamas is taking advantage of the freedom of the press in Israel and using the same rules of the game in Gaza to coerce them to cooperate fully with what they're saying. So finally, we are offering a different type of service. Here, use our freedom of the press, use our materials, do whatever you want with this
Right.
information, use it, don't use it, just see it and balance the coverage somehow. And this is what happens when they see the materials, when they're exposed to it, when they use our help, because they know that if they use it or not, they're not going to get a bullet in their head or
Right,
anything
right.
else.
Now, could the public see some of your stuff? Is there a website?
There's a website. The website is informative. If you want, as a journalist, we give our materials for free for like an introductory period. So you have to register as a journalist, and there's a different site for journalists,
Okay.
and then you can freely
But
access
it's
our
spelled
materials.
as I would pronounce it, Tazpit, T-A-Z-P-I-T.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, so folks could check it out and look it up. Great talking to you.
Great talking to
Good
you.
luck with it. And
Thank you very much.
You're doing a very important service for the media all over the world.
And for media consumers, don't forget that's the
Absolutely.
reation.
Absolutely.
That's the reason.
All right.
Thank
Nice
you very
talking to
much.
you. All right, folks, so we're going to come back with more of the Steve Malzberg Show right after the break. But, of course, first, you stay tuned for your Newsmax Now update coming your way right here on the Steve Malzberg Show, only on Newsmax Television.